Greetings everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm your host Captain Ryan, and in today's video I am the Monarch here in World of Warships. Now if you didn't get that reference, that's okay. If you did get that reference, that's also okay. As the battle gets underway, it's loop, it's domination match mode, and I have kind of decided I'm going to head towards the C cap point. And given the situation with the rest of the team, it looks like we're all going to go ahead and head towards the C and B cap points, which is not unusual for this side of the spawn. Now, the Monarch, Tier 8 British battleship, is basically just an upgraded version of the King George V. In fact, if you look at the hull there, she is pretty much a King George V. The only difference between her, well, I shouldn't say the only difference, but the major difference between the Monarch and the KGV is going to be its main battery guns. The KGV had 10 14-inch guns in 3 turrets. The Monarch has 9 15-inch guns in 3 turrets. Now these 15-inch guns are not like the German 15-inch guns, but they are 15-inch guns, so you can utilize them fairly effectively when dealing with cruisers, assuming you want to load armor piercing. Unfortunately for you, and unfortunately for me, I didn't actually load armor piercing once during this particular battle, instead opting to focus solely on the high explosive. And we're going to see a little bit of an argument in the chat at the end of the battle associated with that decision. My experience, however, with the armor piercing, with these 15-inch guns, is it's not German armor piercing. It does seem to lack a little bit of the punching power, especially when dealing with other battleships. You're certainly not going to expect to get a lot of citadels with the armor piercing. Now, firing at cruisers, on the other hand, especially broadside cruisers, the armor piercing will probably do pretty reasonable at dealing death blows to them. But as you can see, the high explosive does have a pretty good rate of fire. Now, the high explosive does not have the best rate of fire in comparison to, say, the KGV, the Lion, or especially the Conqueror. All of those have much better chances for fire. But because I've been firing high explosive and I managed to set one poor cruiser on fire 3 times, I managed to secure a first blood by burning him down. And so first kill goes to me in this game, and I've already managed to do 21,000 damage just in high explosive and fires alone. The anti-aircraft on the Monarch is a little bit of an improvement over the KGV. As we will see, I'm able to more effectively shoot down planes. Of course, if you're dealing with anything greater than a Tier 8 carrier, you are going to have a significant problem yet again when dealing with those planes. Just because there are so many of them and because their HP pool is so high, you're still going to want to sail in a group of at least one other battleship, possibly an American battleship, maybe the Key, or have a cruiser nearby. My team has managed to secure both the B and C cap points well before I ever reached either one of them. So now I'm looking at the situation, and given that my team's position is coordinated and clustered right around the B and C cap points, I think it would be a good idea to go ahead and push up and defend the B location. Since the enemy team has pushed A in force, they're all going to be sweeping down onto the B cap point from A. So if we can push up and defend that location, that'll be a really good situation for my team to work with, as we can effectively just coordinate and cluster in the choke points there. Of course, coming in from the C cap point does mean I've got more of a choke point to deal with, thanks in large part due to the larger island off to my port side there. Continuing to put the high explosive out down range, I'm trying again desperately to really just set these ships on fire. There's an enemy Colorado up there who's not having a good time of it, and he's going to go ahead and burn down. I'm going to get more shots off here, more high explosive out and down range. The KGV before the Monarch, like the Monarch, suffers from poor turning characteristics. Again, this is a ship that you're going to definitely want that rudder shift module on, and you're definitely going to want to increase your engine with that research right away. But it also suffers from lack of range. I mean, the gun range on this ship isn't particularly good, and then when you consider stock, it's even worse than an upgraded KGV. It really, really does put a damper on your ability to play this ship particularly well, because it means you got to get really damn close to, well, pretty much anything. And the ship doesn't have the best armor at tier 8. Now, the problem with the rudder shift module, in my opinion, is that because you're forced to take it, you're not able to capitalize on what the Monarch and above bring to the table as far as your damage repair ability. It's not the Conqueror level of stupid ridiculous, but it is at least still pretty damn good. And by taking the second damage control module, the damage control mod 2, you are actually able to reduce the amount of damage you take between using your damage control and your repair. Still trying to get more shots out here with the high explosive. I have a broadside of Moggy downrange there, and you might be wondering why the hell I'm still firing a high explosive and not armor piercing. Again, it goes into the fact that I was really just not interested in using the armor piercing. And as I said before, my experience with the armor piercing here in this particular case is that I'm just not going to get the kind of penetration values that I want out of firing the armor piercing. Yes, well, I could fire that. I could probably get some penetrations. I'm not going to get any citadels. Versus firing the high explosive, I'm going to constantly and repeatedly set this individual on fire in multiple locations, and those fires are just going to burn. And burn they will. The enemy team has managed to slightly take an advantage here in number of ships killed. My team still holds the advantage in caps, and we're able to maintain our advantage ever so slightly by taking out enemy ships one by one as necessary. Enemy Fiji up there trying to make a run from behind the island, but he's a broadside on. Of course, I've already used my shots out there. Not quite able to get shots before he disappears. A little disappointed. The high explosive, because it's 15-inch high explosive on a broadside cruiser like that, will absolutely wreck them. Won't citadel them, but it will penetrate and cause some pretty significant damage. And of course, it'll set them on fire in multiple locations. Believe me, I've been on the receiving end of battleship high explosive from the British line, and it is ridiculously overpowered when you are in a cruiser. That Fiji did manage to run aground, so he was broadside onto me. Of course, I was behind an island. Now, I'm going to go ahead and push up here and try desperately to defend the B cap point, as the enemy team has managed to sink some more ships. Of course, we're still just hanging in there just barely by pulling it back, but you'll notice that we're up on points in spite of being down on ships, and that is something that I always tell people why it's important to get off those caps really early on, because now my team has a points advantage. And not only do we have a points advantage, we are continuing to gain points at a more rapid rate than the enemy team, and that is going to play a factor at the end of this battle as well. Very low health of Moggy, incredibly low health. I'm not sure if anyone else is shooting at him. It looks like the Iowa is shooting at him, but it doesn't matter. I managed to finish him off with some penetrations from my high explosive. Now, I'm kind of wondering how high explosive inertia fuse would do on this ship. I think it would do probably very, very well. Of course, you are going to reduce that chance for fires, and that's a little bit of a problem if you want to start some fires. Enemy aircraft carrier manages to take out the friendly Iowa or the Missouri there that was in front of me. Little unfortunate there, but he kind of got a little far forward, and we weren't able to combine our forces. Now, as you can see, the anti-aircraft blazing away, it was able to take out those planes reasonably quickly, but I'm also not alone. There is a cruiser back behind me, and so I'm not sure how well the anti-aircraft could have dealt with all of those planes, it certainly would have taken out a couple. But when you're talking about high-tier carriers, taking out 2 or 3 planes is not really helpful, because they're going to drop their bombs anyway. They're going to go back, and the carrier's going to have reserves anyway, and he's just going to keep coming back and bothering you. Secondary is blazing away at both the Alabama and the degrosser that's in front of me. Now, I'm going to go ahead and push up here. I'm actually trying to ram the degrosser, because he's got more health than I do. He's also a tier 9, and because I really don't expect to win this battle at this point, and I'm just kind of trying to get the damage done here. Unfortunately, I timed my turn a little bit too late, and I don't quite manage to get it. Can't quite hit his stern in order to secure the ram, but I'm pumping round after round into his superstructure with the high explosive, and this is where some major problems are going to start stemming. If you pay attention to the chat here amidst the action that's going on, somebody's going to start popping up and want to know why I'm not firing armor piercing into this guy. Well, if you look at the angle that he's at, armor piercing is really not going to do the best for me, because he's still pretty angled. Now, he is going to give broadside here, but if you look at the situation, I mean, just look how many fires I've managed to set on this guy so far. So he's actually going to burn down. Well, not completely burn down, but he is burning, and that is causing a significant amount of damage to him. Enemy destroyer pops up here, and I've already got my high explosive loaded, which is good for me. I'm getting my guns turned around anyway as I turn my ship to avoid the torpedoes. Fortunately for me, this guy's launching wide spreads, and RNG is giving me a nice big gap to sail through. And because I've got the high explosive loaded on a destroyer, well, that's not going to go well for him, and that ends him pretty quickly. Now, that degrosser is going to drop behind that island, as am I, but of course he's going to get some nice shots off here. Unfortunately, I'm going to make a very, very fatal mistake here. You can see the semi-armor piercing coming in from that smoke screen. I believe that's the Neptune that's in there, or in Edinburgh, and just look at the situation. I've turned broadside onto him, and look how easily that semi-armor piercing rips into me. I try to get behind an island, but I'm not quite fast enough, and I end up meeting my end here. Instead, what I should have done is I should have just gone ahead, slammed on my brake, and bow tanked that guy. I probably could have withered that semi-armor piercing just a little bit longer and stayed in the game just a little bit longer as well. Now, I did earn a witherer for my contributions in the game. 142,000 damage so far. Well, that's going to be max at this point, but 142,000 damage, a lot of fires, a lot of burning damage in that game. Could have fired the armor piercing at a few points. Not really sure how well the armor piercing would have been effective against that degrosser at the very end. Maybe when he gave me a direct broadside. But I'm happy with my decision to fire high explosive because I set him on fire in a lot of places. I'm just disappointed I wasn't able to get at least 2 more fires on him and drop him even lower. My team is now down to just 2 ships. That's it, just 2 ships. There are 2 ships left on my team. 1 cruiser and 1 battleship. The cruiser in Ibuki all the way back up by A, and the battleship a KGV all the way down by C. Now the KGV is in a position to go back and take C. But there's a cruiser down at C, so he is going to have to deal with it. However, he's got full strength here. If you're looking for any kind of salt or flame, feel free to pay attention to the chat at this point, because I'm going to get into it with the other person about the merits of firing armor piercing versus firing high explosive in the Monarch. KGV is going to go ahead and engage with this Baltimore. Now the Baltimore is fairly full health, and if he plays it well, he can cause a significant problem. Fortunately for our hero in the KGV here, Baltimore does not have torpedoes, and also fortunately, Baltimore's pretty much by himself. If you look at the minimap there, you can see who's just popped up. The Baltimore is alone down here. So long as our KGV can take him out effectively and quickly, that means he can drop off detectability, grab the CCAP point yet again, and secure us victory. Again, paying attention to the situation, we are up on points and we're gaining points faster than the enemy team because they failed to push the cap. KGV puts armor piercing into the broadside of that Baltimore and wrecks him. Leaves him on very low health, but remember, this is a tier 9 cruiser, so he's got that heal ability. And of course, you can see here, he's turning in and he's going to try and bow tank. So switching back over to the high explosive and just raking his superstructure is probably going to be a very, very good thing. Hopefully, our KGV can avoid getting rammed. That would be a worst case scenario here for him and of course our Ibuki. Enemy team in the process of capping B, so that's just going to leave us with A all the way up there in the corner there. That Baltimore, very low health. Secondaries on the KGV just ripping into him. The guy's on fire, but you can see he's recovering some health here. Oh, he's going for the ram. You can see it there. He's going for the ram, but he misses it. He misses the ram. KGV sneaks past just barely. Same thing that happened to me earlier. Didn't time that turn very well in order to get it. So now KGV needs to get his guns pointed to the rear and put some armor piercing, or hell, even some high explosives, just right into the bow of that guy. You can see Baltimore firing armor piercing into the stern of our KGV. Not the most effective here in this case, but he's very low health. The secondaries are going at him, but not doing as much damage. KGV finishes him off, drops that right into his bow, and now he's capping C. The problem is he's being spotted, and of course what's coming in there are the semi-armor piercing from, again, either the Neptune or an Edinburgh. I'm not sure which one it is back over there. I'm sure at the end of the battle we'll figure it out. Our Ibuki, however, has managed to survive his engagement, and now he's playing it very smart. He's using his concealment, and he's definitely got concealment, to basically just hide in the back of the map and stay alive. Why is he doing that and not trying to engage? Well, if we pay attention here, the enemy team has got 4 ships left. Ibuki and KGV don't have a lot of health left, and they're separated from each other. But look at the points total. Our team still holds the A cap point. There's not a lot of time left on the clock, and our team is up 900 points. All we need to do is stay alive. Now, if the enemy team goes up and caps A, that could put a damper on us, but again, there's not a lot of time left in this battle. And the enemy team is down 200 points. Given the length of time remaining, I don't know if even if having all 3 caps could prevent our victory. And yes, they have started capping A. So what's important, incredibly important here, is that at the very least, to prevent us having a less of a point lead here, especially in case one of the 2 dies, our KGV needs to get back up into the C cap point and start capping it as well. That's going to force the enemy team to decide what they want to do, but it's also going to limit the number of caps gaining the enemy team points down to just the B cap point. So we're going to go ahead and get in there. There's less than a minute left now. Look at that. We're at a score of 944. The enemy team hasn't even managed to reach 800, and now we've managed to slow them down effectively because there's only 1 cap gaining points. And that's it. That's all that has to be done now, is surviving. And again, I'm not even sure if they managed to kill our KGV or the Ibuki here at the very end, if they could even pull off a points upset. I don't think us losing 40 points and then gaining 40 points would be enough, because we're still 100 points ahead of them, and there's now 20 seconds left. Our KGV is actually going to drift out of the cap zone here, but again, looking at the time left on the clock, it's not going to matter, as there's no way they can pull off a victory. Because our cruisers, our KGV, very smart, stayed hidden at the very end there. And there it is, folks, a victory in the Monarch. Just pretty happy about that. That was one of the few victories I actually had in the Monarch, and I was very happy to quickly get out of this ship. As I said before, 142,752 damage in that game. A lot of fires, 14 fires, a couple of kills, first blood, and a witherer. Surprisingly enough, though, in spite of never firing a round of armor piercing at anybody, I actually managed top of the team for XP earned in that game at over 2,000 base XP there. And of course, a big shout out to the Ibuki and to the KGV player, who did an excellent job at the very end working with their limited resources. Anyway, that's it for today's video, folks. If you liked the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, follow button, and leave a comment. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. If you'd like to help support me and the channel, as well as gain additional supporter perks, you can do so by becoming my supporter on Patreon. If you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to see featured on my channel, you can do so by sending it to my email. And if you'd like to watch me play various games live intermittently, you can do so by following me on Twitch. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.